Everyone, to the February 25th, 2020 City Council meeting. Please note that all council members are present. And I've asked Vice Chair Blair to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise and repeat the pledge after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, we have a recognition this evening for Women's History Month, and Councilmember Heyer is going to be reading that.
Thank you, Chair. It's my pleasure to make this presentation today. Declaring March 2020 Women's History Month in Ogden City. Whereas Ogden owes much of its success and growth to the contributions of women, accounting for half of the city's population, their influence has been invaluable. They have enriched our community through their service, hard work, and dedication. And whereas in 1980, President Jimmy Carter issued the first presidential proclamation declaring 1 week in March National Women's History Week. 6 years later, Congress extended the week to a full month of celebration. Each year, the president issues a proclamation declaring the entire month of March Women's History Month. And whereas the success of our community is built upon the hard work of men and women, all too often the contributions of women go unnoticed. Women's History Month honors these women and recognizes their contributions to history, society, and culture. And whereas the National Women's History Alliance's 2020 theme for Women's History Month is Valiant Women of the Vote, celebrates the women who have fought for women's right to vote in the United States. In recognition of the centennial of the 19th Amendment, we honor women from the original suffrage movement as well as 20th and 21st century women who have continued to ensure voting rights for all. Their positive impact has helped shape Ogden into the city it is today. And whereas the Weber County Heritage Foundation is seeking to educate and inspire the community by pursuing national votes for women's trail markers to honor these Ogden women. Sarah Anderson, elected in 1896 as Weber County's first female legislator, Jane Richard, the National Relief Society delegate at the National Council of Women meeting in 1891, and Kate Hillard, the first woman delegate from Utah, elected to attend a national political convention in 1896. We're all early pioneers for women, not only in Ogden, but the nation. The foundation will also provide a free audio walking tour, Ogden's Untamed Women Pursuing Equality for 100 Years, that will highlight women from Ogden's past and where they pursued avenues to equality. And whereas we commemorate all of the wonderful women of Ogden, past and present, their lasting impact and influence will forever be a staple in our community. Now, therefore, the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell hereby proclaim March 2020 Women's History Month in Ogden City. We express our sincere appreciation for the great women of our community. We recognize the efforts of Weber County Heritage Foundation and all others within our community who make Ogden a great place to live. And I would make a motion that we adopt a joint proclamation declaring March 2020 as Women's History Month in Ogden City.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Stevens for the joint proclamation. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And do we have a representative of the Weber County Heritage Foundation here tonight?
Awesome. Is one of you Kate Stewart?
Fantastic. Or Kate Nelson?
She's the teacher
Oh, no problem. Well, would you all like to come up and accept this and shake all of our hands? Thank you.
Yep.
Yes,
Just
you
go
betcha.
along. It's easier to use the system.
You might as well.
Thank you. Take this with you.
Oh, great. Yeah, take a picture.
On your way through.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Hello. How are you? Doing good. Thanks for being here. Well, hello there.
Great, let's take a picture.
Yes, you did. I know. Really? Still
Laura, how are you? You're doing double duty tonight?
Really?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks.
I got a lifesaver.
And you're double duty in it too.
Hey, how are you? Thank you. How are you? Good. Thank you. What a good looking one.
Okay, scoosh in.
We're going to take a picture, folks. Stand in front of the dais.
Yeah, Dias.
Nice.
Dias? Yes, Dias. You say tomato, I say tomato.
My bad.
Dias.
Everyone look in here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Would one of you like to say something at the podium? Okay.
I do.
Feel free to say your name.
My name is Kate Stewart, and I'm actually the new 2020 president for Weber County Heritage Foundation.
Welcome.
Just newly put in place last Wednesday. So I'm working with Better Days 2020. It's an organization that is statewide. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but they are really pushing lots of events statewide about women in Utah who did amazing things 100 years ago to push the vote. So look them up if you haven't heard of them. And it's an easy thing to find, just betterdays2020.org. But so Katie Nelson, who is a history professor at Weber State, and I have been pursuing with Better Days 2020 to get these plaques erected here in Ogden to commemorate those 3 Ogden women. And the nominations are in and they're still under review. So we haven't got confirmation yet, but they have been back and forth with us, asking us more information. So it's looking really good. As soon as we know, we will let you know. And we're hoping to have an event of some kind to reveal them all so that people can get excited about it, know that it's happening. And the 3 locations, one will be at the Junction, which I know you guys are familiar with because of our need to get permission to erect it. One will be on 26th Street. It's the only home that still exists of one of the women who, Kate Hilliard's home. And the other one will be at the DUP Museum, Jane Richards. She was the Relief Society, I think the Stake Relief Society president at the time that they erected that monument. So, and then the last thing we're also putting together is the walking tour. It will be free. You can download it on your favorite phone or whatever you listen to your podcasts on, and just walk around downtown Ogden and learn about the women like Bertha Eccles and Anna Dee, people who influenced the early Ogden growth. And I do want to say one other thing, and I'll sit down.
Please.
We are so excited as an organization that we have the city of Ogden in Weber County. It is really the heart of the history of this organization. So much of what we talk about and what we share and what we want to preserve is in Ogden. And the people in Ogden are so passionate about their history. I run the social media page for our organization, and there are people from outside of Ogden who, if they find out we're doing something in Salt Lake before we do it here, like send us hate mail. And they don't even have to like live here anymore. They grew up here and they're like, what are you doing? That's our city. You have to do it in Ogden first. So the people who live here and people who are born here, no matter if they're here now, are super passionate. And I think that's what makes what we do so fun. I mean, if people didn't care about this platform we've created and the stories we want to tell, we wouldn't have an audience and it wouldn't be worth it. But Ogden is just one of those places that has that, and we really love it. So anyway, thank you so much. We're so excited.
Before you sit down, Chair,
Please.
if I might, congrats on the new role.
Thank you.
I hope your energy is not is not suggestive of your newness to the role. I hope you feel
No.
this energetic and passionate
I do.
at the end of your tenure.
I do. This is my second year of being president.
Oh, okay.
So I've re-upped.
There's a lot of hope for you then.
I know.
She's still got a lot of energy.
I know. I
say.
get really nervous. That's probably a little bit of it too.
Okay.
I'm
I just wanted to tell you that, admittedly, I've had a long day. I've been awake for more hours than I should be, and I was tired. I'm tired,
fair.
and I feel better. Your energy,
Well, good. I'm
your
glad.
energy gives me energy. Thank you.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Thank you so much for saying that. And I did bring a little gift. I don't know if I have enough for everybody. You all got one? Oh, good. So they're the posters that we created a couple years ago, but these are our signed copies from the artist, signed and numbered. So they're the special copies that we like to save for our special people. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much for all of your hard work.
It was very
your
kind of you
perseverance.
to let me do that in honor of my mother, sister, wife, and daughters. It was a really nice thing to be able to do.
Well, thank you for doing it. Great. So now we have approval of minutes. We have the joint work session of July 16, 2019. Councilmember Nadolski.
Thank you. I've approved. I reviewed those minutes, and they are accurate to my recollection.
Thank you. And we have the special meeting of the Board of Canvass of November 19, 2019. Councilmember Heyer.
Yes, I have reviewed those minutes, and they accurately reflect that content of that meeting.
Great, thank you. And the regular meeting of November 19, 2019. Councilmember Lopez.
Yes, Chair, they're correct.
Thank you. Joint work session of December 3rd, 2019. Councilmember Stevens.
Yes, Chair, that was a great meeting, and I did read those minutes, and they're
You loved reliving
correct.
it? Okay. And then the regular meeting of December 3rd, 2019. Councilmember White.
I don't remember that meeting, but I do remember the meeting I read. Yes, Chair Traberka, they are correct, and I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember White and a second by Councilmember Heyer to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you all for reading those. Now we have the common consent. We have several items on that. We have the Ogden Housing Authority approving an appointment, fiscal years 2020, 22, 2024 capital improvement plan amendment. We're setting the public hearing, and the fiscal year 2020 budget amendment, airport northeast fire flow improvements, proposed ordinance 2020-9. That's also for setting a public hearing.
Chair, I make a motion that we adopt common consent items.
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Lopez, second by Councilmember Heyer to approve the common consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So we have some additional unfinished business tonight. The continuation of item that we tabled from last meeting, February 18, 2020. It's the proposed Lynn Community Plan Amendment and rezone at 140 to 152 West 2nd Street. I believe that Greg Montgomery will do a short presentation on that. And just for the knowledge of the audience, we do not normally take additional comments or input for a tabled item.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the council, as you mentioned, this was a petition that had been filed with the city. The Plan Commission had reviewed it, made a recommendation to you. Last week, we presented that recommendation to you for consideration, and there was further information, discussion that you desired, and so we're coming back to review that. So I want to just give an overview, because I know a couple of the council members weren't here last week, just kind of give you an update of what had taken place. So what we've got is a petition to look at changing the community plan so that the property in red on this map, that 4.7 acres, could be rezoned to R3 to allow multiple family development. The present R3 zoning that exists is in that yellow area, 3.13 acres, which was done last year with a development agreement saying that this area could have a project develop on it under that density. Since that original discussion petition, that property has been sold, and the developer now who's acquired that also wants to acquire additional property to make a larger project. So one of the things that the commission always looks at and recommends in their consideration is the request consistent with the community plan? In this case, that yellow area corresponds to the yellow area in the community plan. that said that there are options for R3, which is multiple family zoning, PI, which is professional institutional office zoning, or C1, which is neighborhood commercial zoning. That property had those three options. The city acted upon it and said that R3 would be an appropriate action for that first 3.13 acres. The other thing the Planning Commission considered was that map, but also the language of the community plan, where the language of the community plan, which was adopted in 2005 as an amendment to the original community plan, was done in the 80s. But that four corners were looked at in 2005 as a specific amendment to the general community plan. The language of the plan also said that the combining of property shall not extend beyond that corner property. In other words, whatever that corner property was, that's as far as the consideration would go in terms of plan amendments, and that any development in that area would be done as a conditional overlay. So as the Planning Commission considered both what the text of the language said and what the map had shown when they reviewed this petition. Now, just to get you familiar with the area, so these areas in red are the four properties that are being proposed to be amended into the community plan and then rezoned. Four different property owners. You can see the sizes from a half an acre to 1.6 acres. And those four individuals, and see how the properties lay out of the area under consideration. One of the things that came up as a question was, does the community plan being originally done as an older plan, did it really anticipate what could happen in the future and where development would take place? That 4.7 acres of the higher density development. And in this illustration, just kind of showing physically what the community plan had talked about. It had given a large area to be rezoned as potential R3 or even commercial, which would even potentially give higher density developments, from the area of North Street all the way down Harrisville Road. Most of that inner property is still all vacant. The plan said it would have to have a 5-acre minimum, which means, again, consolidating properties to do a development, and that has not happened over this whole time period. What has happened is just to the edge of it in the commercial zone, there's a 66-unit development under construction at the present time. Also, just by the neighborhood at 5 Points, there's another 86-unit development under construction at the present time, that other area in red. And the other area in red is the proposed 30 units that you had looked at last year. So as you look at areas that had been proposed for development with those higher densities, where some of that development is taking place, but also areas that also in the plan say higher density is going to happen here, what has not happened. So there's kind of just what is taking place in this area, what type of development trends are occurring. And that the community plan really looked at various options of housing to try to provide various types of housing that could occur throughout this area. One of the things that was mentioned, and I think is a point to make a clarification, is just single family. There's some comments made about single family dwellings. I want to just make a clarification that all residential development are single family units, no matter what style they look at. There's only one family that lives in one unit. So they all are single family units. And all single family units can have their own individual ownership numbers, tax numbers, whether that's done as means of condominium, a private subdivision, or a lot. So the fact that it has its own tax ID number, or the fact that it's called a single family unit, doesn't mean what sometimes people think it means. The question is, what is the building style? There's a detached home, which is single family dwelling, means that all four sides are free and clear of any other building. It is one lot, one building on one piece of property. Then there's the single family units that have common walls, whether they share one common wall, whether they share two common walls, whether they share a roof and a floor. Those are done in things like apartments, townhomes. So I think it's just important to understand when some terminology is used, what that really means. Just because it has a tax number or that doesn't mean it's a detached single-family home. So I just want to bring that as a point of clarification. The next thing is, as we heard in the hearing last time, the 4 property owners are really in a situation that they want to get out of the property as they are because either the size of the property is too large to maintain, the property is isolated, it's too far back, and it makes it difficult for the present owners to continue on with it. Building maintenance on these older homes has created problems. And so those 4 properties all wish to desire to have someone buy them out and be redeveloped. And as you look at this, you can see some of those situations, especially when you look at the Jones and Hart properties, how far back they are off the road, 695 feet back. And the Jones property has no frontage on the street. The Hart property has a small skinny stem that then leads back to the back of the properties. But those were the issues that were brought up of why those individuals are in favor of this taking place, because they're trying to change the situations they're in now, and the ownerships that they have there. And so those are legitimate concerns, and those are things that are understandable, and that's what they had mentioned, why this is important to rezone this property. The other thing that was brought up is what could take place without a plan amendment. So as you look at these properties, with the Hart and Jones properties, those 2 inner parcels that are really kind of isolated, they could become part of a 5-acre PRUD without rezoning. The developer could take those along with his project that is on the wall and 2nd Street frontage, and it would have, including then the other property, have 5 acres that could be done as a planned unit development. The planned unit development would have a density of 7.2 acres without any type of rezoning, but would allow for various building types. So
Greg, what's DUA again?
Dwelling units an acre. So the plan development could have units that are attached, units that are detached and clustered in around a common space, provide some options and flexibility, which when you look at the shape of these properties is important for them to try to develop. When we looked at the R3 zoning and did that, you look at that again, shape of the property, it's really not the best shape to have the most useful layout of buildings. The same is true with these other 2 properties. It's really not the best shape unless things get combined to truly try to set something that would be a quality development. That's how the lots are, but the PRUD would give it a better option to try to do that development. One other thing we looked at, and Councilwoman White, you had mentioned this early on, and that was, is there provisions to allow smaller lots? One of the things we were doing with another project just recently, and we had forgot that we had taken the infill ordinance, which was just meant for the East Central area, and actually expanded it to all R16 properties. So the infill is actually an option that could take place, and what that does, it takes what would normally be a 6,000 square foot lot and allow it to be 4,500 square feet.
And would those have to be single detached?
Those would be still single detached, though. But it does reduce the lot size, it reduces the setbacks. It even has some reductions for the road standards. And for that Hart-Jones property, that reduced road standard is important to try to get access back there.
What's the justification to make that kind of a zone change?
So, well, this wouldn't be a zone change. This is what currently could happen. And
so it's still an R16 even with those 4,500 square feet?
Yeah, because it would fall underneath the infill ordinance, meaning it's interior parcels.
It's because it's an infill. That's the answer I was looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. On the Giboney property, again, it could become part of that 5-acre PRUD and still have those same things take place. Or it could be a standalone and 6 lots could be subdivided off that property with the current frontage it has along the street. And to also add additional density, it can be done with accessory dwelling units in each of those. And so it'd make that owner-occupied 6 lots with the accessory dwelling to, again, provide another type of housing style that could take place in the neighborhood to meet that variety of housing. So those things can be done without any rezoning or plan amendment. Again, we reviewed this, of what these different numbers mean. What does R16 mean? What does R2 mean? What does R3 mean? So R16 means single-family detached homes, and if it's done as a PRD, it could have a density of 7.2 units an acre. R2 allows single-family or duplexes, in other words, one detached building or one building with 2 units in it. R3 allows from the single-family detached to multiple family in any type of configuration as long as the density doesn't exceed 18 units an acre. It also allows if the PRD, if it's 8 acres, so the PRD requirement goes higher because more density is allowed, trying to get then more community feel and more common areas and that type of thing in it. So that has a higher threshold of when it could be a PRUD. One of the other questions that came up was the medians, and I think it's important just to make note that the medians were part of the BDO mitigation. When BDO was first considered, one of the questions was impacts to 2nd Street. And in order to reduce those impacts, it was determined to be appropriate to install those medians because now that street would be opened up to general traffic, not just federal employees working at the base. And so it was to take a much wider road and put landscape in the center to decrease the feel of how big that road is. And it's not uncommon, as you see in the picture below, that is Skyline Parkway. Medians, again, used in single-family neighborhoods to lessen the feel of the large road and to create some calming influence. So it's not that this is the only place that has done that. We did that also in Southeast Ogden to try to address when you have a larger road, how do you take the feel of it being so large and reduce it so people will travel slower, not feel such a large expanse of asphalt. And so that's kind of a question of how did that 2nd Street median take place. It's all part of the BDO development. Then there's the considerations of what the general plan has. So as you look at this bubble diagram, for lack of a better term, I tried to identify the conflicting community policies that exist in our general plan. One says that the zoning should reflect the character of the area. And the other said that we should avoid disrupting the type of housing along streets if they're single family. So in other words, what it's basically saying is, and you heard last week from Terry Lanier, whose house would be isolated between all this, that the concern of what takes place down 2nd Street. These policies basically say that along 2nd Street, there should be single-family detached homes. That continuity of what's all the way down 2nd Street should exist and shouldn't try to isolate one segment and make it something different than what the rest of the street is. And so it's saying this really should be single-family detached along 2nd Street. And the other part is reflecting the character, since the majority of the area is single-family. The plan talked about multiple family being really more along maybe Wall Avenue at that corner, because the corner is a very busy corner, and also along Harrisville Road, which is a major state highway, that's where increased density should be located at. On the other hand, you have another 2 competing community plan policies about avoiding isolation. When you look at that squiggly yellow area and the squiggly red area, they really become isolated, especially if the yellow area develops. The squiggly red really then becomes isolated in terms of what it could become if they're not joined together. And also that the concepts of development should reflect the interaction of those neighborhoods. Again, the unusual shape, the isolation of access, kind of says, well, there ought to be something that maybe ties these two together to be done as one project. But again, the earlier rezoning and this rezoning request aren't really talking about combining those two. So it still leaves that conundrum of what happens then, even if you make a plan amendment and rezone this, what forces those projects to be tied together and to create some continuity. So those are some things that came out from the last meeting on last week, just to give you an update. So we talked about how the area has changed and developed over time, and that development has been primarily single-family development, as you can see from this photo of how the area has changed. Also talked about, in considering a plan amendment, are there special circumstances that warrant the consideration of amendment? Have there been regional changes, transportation changes, or are there conflicting statements in the plans that maybe need to be addressed and modified? Those become some of the founding principles that you look at if you're considering a plan amendment. As the Planning Commission weighed all these things, and one of the items I think came up, and we just want to clarify it again, is that when the Planning Commission heard it, while the petition originally was for R5, it was changed to R3. And the Planning Commission felt that whether it be R5 or R3, the basic principles of the community plan aren't changing depending on R5 or R3. Both would still need to consider plan amendment, and the principles would still be the same. So they, in their recommendation to you, were considering R3 as an option just as well as R5. And so when they're recommending denial of the plan amendment, it was really considering both types of things, saying the basic principles of the site and the community plan don't change whether it's R3 or R5. So they recommend 7-0 to deny the plan amendment. And then they looked at, then if the plan amendment is recommended to be denied, then there's really no justification of the rezoning. So they also followed up with the 7-0 recommendation to deny the rezoning request. So that is what you have before you tonight for consideration.
So just to clarify really quickly, you would have to change the community plan to do the rezone.
Correct.
Any questions?
I have
Greg?
a question also. There has been some discussion as to whether we got to keep this continued to allow the developer not to have to pay the other fee. What are the fees pay for, and how?
Okay.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So the fees generally look at paying the cost of the mailing notices, because general community plans have larger radius of notices, and depending on the intensity, may have more meetings. So they pay for that noticing, the mailing of the notices. They pay for the staff time in creating the reports, both to go to the Planning Commission and to the council. And generally, they cover about 60% of the cost of what it takes to actually do those things.
How much are those fees, do you know?
$1,100
That's for the community plan
amendment
and
the zoning.
and a zoning fee. So those are two separate fees, right?
No, it's combined as one.
I know, but they equal up to the one.
Yes.
To that 1,100.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Greg, early in your presentation, you talked about it was mentioned early in the plan not to be able to, or for that corner piece to be able to stand alone, not
Correct.
to combine with another parcel. Why?
At the time, one of the things that was looked at is that was the vacant parcel. And I'll bring this up, that one of the key drivers of the community throughout all this many, many years back in the 70s and 80s was Lyman Anderson, who owned the house that's just to the west of that piece, the old farmhouse, the brick house. He was a very active community person, and he wanted to make sure that the character of the area retained. And again, Lyman and Nick Baker. Those two were very adamant when working in the neighborhood. And those thoughts still continued on after they had passed away, that this is still what we want to see happen. We can see a transition take place, a long wall, because maybe, who wants to live in single-family homes along the wall? But we don't want to encroach that further west from Wall Avenue.
Okay. And then I agree with, I believe there is a valid argument that if you don't allow them to do that, what happens to if a developer buys those properties, what happens to the properties behind the corner pieces? What spurs on that development?
I think that's where that PRUD concept comes in, because on their own, they don't have 5 acres that have to join with that present corner piece. And that can allow a transition to take place of densities. So you'd have the R3 density up front, but you can transition that and still develop all those properties under that PRUD. You just don't get all the higher density for all 4 acres. But you're now allowed to kind of mitigate impacts and step down in densities or increase maybe some open space areas. So it allows it to happen, but it wouldn't allow it as high a density. But it would have to be a conscious decision of the developer to say, okay, I'm taking both pieces to make that PRUD work.
Mm-hmm. They could still do the single-family detached along 2nd Street in that PUD.
One of the things about the PRUD is actually requires that to happen along whatever your development type is, the 75% of the development type along the streets or along the side for a 100-foot distance would have to have that same style. And then inside you can do the different things.
Great. Thank you.
So who owns the corner lot there?
The developer.
Does he?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So has he suggested to do a PRUD then?
No, not at this point. I don't know. I haven't seen anything.
If you'd like to.
So you'd have to wait until to see if the zoning was.
I think that's what.
Then.
Again, I can't speak for him, but I think that's. In my assumption, that's what you do. See, can I get this? If not, then what's my next step?
Yeah.
I believe the petitioner is present if you'd like to ask them a question.
Okay.
Anybody have more questions for Greg?
So about how many units could you get if he did a PRUD total on that?
Well, let's see. If you had, let's see if I've got numbers here.
I think you earlier said about 7 point
Yeah,
something.
about 7.
Well,
about
7.2 is per acre, but that's not including what if you had the R3 piece in. That's just saying the 4.2 acres.
Mm-hmm.
But if I think right, I
I'll
had.
do some quick adding.
Close to 8.
It looks like I had somewhere about 33 and about 70.
70 units?
Uh-huh.
Divided
If we
by-
reduce that
Corner.
minimum lot size?
Huh?
That's including that
Corner.
corner
70
piece.
detached parcels. 70 detached.
No, 70 units. So a
70
PRUD,
units.
you could do it in a
Okay.
variety.
Okay.
It's just that
On the
frontage
corner
would be.
would still be the townhomes.
Yeah.
So on the corner, we approved that, but we did a conditional overlay. Did
Correct.
we do that?
Uh-huh.
So that's still labeled as what, R1?
No, it's R3
R3.
/ conditional overlay CO.
Okay. So could the developer go to a conditional overlay too, in this case?
Well, that'd be one of the considerations you'd look at is that if you are going to look at a change in the zoning, you'd want to probably put that conditional overlay as a stipulation of the zoning that if it were not for a specific design, you wouldn't rezone it to that.
Okay. And what does the conditional overlay do?
Well, what it does is saying because there's some unique design that you feel is a quality development, you would consider rezoning it to that R3 because of that design. But if that design did not take place, you would then withdraw that zoning and keep it back to the R1. So you're kind of controlling the type of project that would take place. You set parameters of what would it have in it. Again, total number of units. For example, the corner, we limited it to 30 units, even though the R3 zone at that corner, well, I think would have allowed 40 something.
Okay.
But you limit it to 30.
So would that have to go back to the planning commission then?
If you're proposing changes that would require a development agreement, a conditional overlay, there would be that planning commission involvement.
Okay. So let's go to the vote of the planning commission was denial 7-0.
Correct.
And the reason they did that because of the high density in the area? Was that their condition?
Was the inconsistency with the plan, and they felt that there wasn't anything that had changed. Why should they look at a change of the plan? They still felt that the overall character of the area was single-family detached.
All right.
And I just want to interject for just 1 second to clarify the process. Since this was a recommendation of denial, there's actually not an ordinance for us to consider, right? Am I saying this correct, Glenn? Please correct me. So it would actually, if we wanted some other direction besides denial of the petition or extending the consideration, we'd have to direct staff to create an ordinance. So just to clarify.
But it's well to understand the options there for us.
Right. It's just that, yeah, we'd have to do that instead of what's on our plate today. Any other questions?
Well, no, I just want to make a comment. I mean, I think part of it is that it's a very old plan. And so I think there was reasons why there was a denial. So, and I'm sorry, I'm confused on the infill subdivision. How would we do that? Or if
That's just a right that the developer has to.
So it's right. It follows the R16
Correct.
zoning. But that's only on the Hart-Jones property, not on the Gibney property?
Correct. Because the condition is it's property that's landlocked, that's internal.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I had a question, Chair.
Yes.
Do the comments that are in the packet from the Planning Commission meeting from the public, do they pretty well reflect the comments you guys heard last week? Okay. Apologize for not being here, but that was the only thing I was wondering. Thank you.
I have one other question. A few slides forward, it shows what the development was years ago.
Oh,
And what it is recently? Okay. So 1993 and now. I would think since 1993, I mean, in 1993 you said those were mostly single-family homes. I believe that's common throughout our whole city, though, was in 1993, that's what we were mainly building was single-family homes or detached homes. And I think there has been a shift in kind of the market or what is desirable now. And there is more duplex style or condominium style homes that are a little easier to afford and less maintenance. And so I think that shift, there's a big difference between 1993 and 2019 also. So I don't think it totally represents that because that's what happened in 1993, that's what we should continue to do. I don't know how to say that in a question, but that's what I've noticed.
maybe just a couple things. The 1993, if you look up at on Wall Avenue across the road from the UDOT, those were all 4 and 6 plexes. And then later on, as that area developed, because the plan anticipated that triangle area between 2nd Street, Harrisville Road, Wall Avenue, and North Street, that would be the multiple family area. And so as time has gone on, those extensions have taken in, and there are additional 4plexes, duplexes that have been built in those areas.
And Greg, will you clarify the Strickler property as well? I mean, that is part of the consideration as well.
So you see, there's what it's labeled there. So there's a single family home on that. And one of the things why they're including this is with UDOT and the requirement of the other project, that's where the access would be. And if that home could share access with the development, that'd be the best. Well, if they're going to share access, and the question is, well, then why not share in additional development? Because they've got a very deep, they got about 300 something deep lot, so they have a lot of vacant land in the back that could also be utilized.
Would anybody like to ask the petitioner any questions? No? No? Okay. Thank you so much, Greg.
Well, maybe we could ask him if he was considering a PRUD.
According to the information he sent us most recently, no, but would you like to step up?
Sean Strong. I was here last week, and just to answer your question, just off the cuff, last year, 2019, there was actually new construction permits. There was actually more single-family attached permits than detached in the state of Utah. So the trend is definitely going that way. As far as your question to consider a PRUD, we did consider that, but even with a 4,500 square foot lot, with these irregular shapes, it's really tough to do it. You could probably do it, but it's what you do is you lose your open space. With this new plan I have right here, there's only 10 more units. As from what Greg said, there will only be 10 more units, but we'd have almost 50% open space, green space. So there's still a trade-off with green space, open space, single family detached, because you're going to, I mean, this footprint's probably 800 square foot per footprint versus 4,500 for a lot. So you're going to lose a lot of open and green space as well on that. So it's just really tough, even with a single family detached with those odd shaped pieces to do that.
So what does 2nd Street look like in your drawings there?
So there's 6 homes facing 2nd Street.
Okay.
On the Giboney property right now.
Okay.
Which would match the same homes on Wall as well.
Okay. And the open space is what? And when you talk about open space,
So that would be the green space. I got a couple pickleball courts, a bunch of parking spaces, additional parking. And then it would coincide with the phase 1, which is a playground as well.
and that ties into the corner.
Yeah, the
property.
corner piece or phase 1, yeah. If you look at it, there's a ton of green space up through the middle there. As a matter of fact, 49%. And really only, I believe it's 10 additional units versus just the R16.
Any other questions? Great, thank you so much. So now is the time. I'd be willing to entertain any motions.
Could I expound a little bit?
Please.
I think, I've thought a lot about this before last week, but even more since last week because of all of the comment. And I've jotted a few things down that I think probably need to be mentioned or should be mentioned. We've recently gone through a housing study. We went through that last summer. And what I heard is that Ogden has a bulk of high density housing currently, and I don't think it is lost on me or any of us that we need to concentrate on fixing the bad stuff that we have more than just adding more. That brings me to the community plan that we have before us. And it's been said that it's a very old plan, which is true. I mean, most of our plans are getting pretty long in the tooth. However, I spent my time before my time on the council as a planning commissioner, and primarily because of this property on 2nd and Wall. Every time there was a development that was brought forward on that one, this community activates and they come together. And then in 2005, we amended that plan, that 1990 something plan. And these faces are the same faces that we see. They haven't changed. they're voters in Ogden. They have bought where they bought with an expectation. They have spent time working on a community plan and maintaining a community plan to maintain that expectation. And it would be disingenuous on our part to say, well, no, none of that means anything anymore. We need to go forward and see how much we can cram into this space. So, as I heard the different comments that came in, there were those that were for denial of this, and then there were those who weren't. And they were people the ones that weren't for denial are either sellers or buyers, largely. Wanting to make sure that they got the most dollars out of this project. And I think this is worth a lot more than just how much revenue it can generate. In the case of this developer, he applied for an R5. I read the application. I read the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting, and he changed that kind of midstream after the work had been done, the noticing had been done, because I think he could see that wasn't going to fly. But the fee was essentially used up in my mind. As Greg said, the fees pay you about 60% of the actual costs to process an application. And nothing that we do, if we denied it today, it doesn't keep him from applying again. However, I look at the options that are already approved and legal and ready for him to do, and I think they're certainly viable development options that I think I'm seeing heads nod. They could live with that. It would maintain the character of the neighborhood. It would keep the community plan. It would honor the community plan. So, just another thing traffic, that was brought up a lot last week. I really don't think that's a consideration. I don't think the traffic that's generated out of this is really going to make too much of a difference. But so I don't weigh that into this decision at all. But nothing compels me to continue this. It seems very clear that we should just deny this and let the developer do what he either can already do or reapply for something else. So that's what I have to say about this.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a question, and maybe Greg, you can answer this. So this is all one big parcel, or we're looking at it as one big area. I guess the way you described it, what he could do on each of those areas, and to me it makes sense that maybe even I'm sorry, but the Giboney area seems almost could be similar to what we've done on that phase one. And so I just am wondering, has that been considered as far as breaking up the areas where then maybe putting single detached homes in that back area might make sense? Kind of a mix of both. I don't know how to ask that question.
Well, I think you asked it. I don't know how to answer it.
Especially with that one house right there.
I think one of the things is we didn't look at breaking things up because the petition really said this is what we want to have happen. In development schemes, though, I think as a PRUD, those things could take place. Of looking at, well, this type along Second Street frontage has this character, the back area has this character, and that's all part of what a PRUD looks at. So I think those options are there with or without a zoning change. The question of the zoning change is just the densities then of what takes place. Does that help?
So, Greg, I have another question. So this was done in 1993. I had a picture there, and that corner piece was vacant in 1993, correct?
Right. There used to be a home on there, and it was torn down probably in the mid-'80s, early '80s.
Okay.
Been vacant a long time.
It's been vacant a long time, and the pressure for development had always been generally a convenience store. I don't know how many petitions we had.
2 or 3 at least, yeah.
But that's the only. I mean, that's really the only commercial application we've gotten there.
Correct. Which is kind of why in 2005 the community plan was revisited,
Right.
because they really felt strongly that they don't want a convenience store there. No Blair service on that corner.
They're crazy. They're crazy.
And so, but it was looked at that point. So it's not as old as it seems, and I think it's a comprehensive look, because even in that iteration, they addressed the stuff further inbound.
So I understand that. My thinking in this is when this community plan was developed, there was a lot of input and but it seems like it's almost, I don't want to say too strict, but like they've created a very narrow avenue of accessible uses or allowable uses there. And I just don't know if that's really been the vision they had in 1993 or when this took place.
You just look at the zoning map. I'm just showing him a picture of the colored zoning map at the sea of yellow that has been their expectation. That's kind of all I've tried to do is to continue to keep what they've tried to grown to expect.
Okay. I just wondered. I mean, in less than a year, we've had 2 proposals for this one corner piece of property, and
Correct.
It's a very coveted piece of property. People are, I mean, there's not, like as was mentioned earlier last week, there's not a lot of vacant pieces of property ready to be built on, and this is one, and it just seems.
Maybe it would help us
We'll be going through this again.
If Greggy had outlined what he can build with the community plan.
He's
on this
already
property.
done that.
He did.
Yeah, just to review that just briefly.
So generally, the most possible things, given the shapes of the properties, is either do an infill subdivision with the smaller lots, and that'd be the detached single-family homes on a 4,500 square foot lot, and along 2nd Street, 6 regular size lots could be built. Or you take all those properties and you do it as a PRUD, which then allows you flexible building types, but has certain parameters of how you match up to the existing neighborhood, some different things like that take place, and then you get density bonuses for doing certain design things. So those 2 things could happen now without a plan amendment or a rezone. Provided with the PRUD, you add enough to get 5 acres.
With the PRUD, do you go in front of the Planning Commission?
Yes, both of those would go through the Planning Commission.
And they just look at it for the standards that the PRUDs already have to see if they meet that.
Compliance to the ordinances,
Yep.
yes. And then in awarding density bonuses, whether or not they feel those are being met.
Right.
Chair Jaberka, can I make a comment? I just want to, first I want to thank Councilmember Heyer for just how thoughtful you were in your comments, but also in your reflection in the way that you have looked at the issue, and I know how much you consider these things, especially in your area.
Well, these are my people.
I know, and I think and I hope that they know how much time and attention you put into this stuff for them. He's a good man with a good heart. He puts a lot of good thought into this stuff, and I take that pretty seriously when I make my decisions as well. I tend to agree with the comments that you made about this proposal. I want to add to it. I'm not, because I think I understand where Bart's coming from too. It's not being developed for a reason. And so I kind of understand what he's saying. And I think we've had that conversation about this corner before. But the proposals that we've seen in the past, I think have been advantageous to the developer, but it's been clear that it hasn't been advantageous to the neighborhood as a whole. And I still want to make sure that there's something that this neighborhood feels contributes to the quality of their area because of the amount of engagement and the amount of investment from this part of the neighborhood is significant, and that's something that's worth a whole heck of a lot to me. I'm absolutely not opposed to developers making money. That's how this works. It's just that I want to make sure that they're making money, but that we're making good decisions for the neighborhood as well. And if you reflect on density as a whole in the state of Utah, we're going to have to get used to the fact that we need more density. But that doesn't mean that we put density everywhere. I think just as important as the decision to incorporate density in our communities is the decision as to where and how. And I don't see that this is where that should occur. I think that the expectation for the sea of yellow is the expectation that we should hold to as well. And I would look forward to a motion from the councilman and from the area if you're ready.
I just have a couple of comments or just questions maybe.
Please.
So my understanding is that a lot of those homes surrounding that area are owned by a rental company, American Rental something.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it? I mean, does it do attached or detached? I mean, in my opinion, detached homes then can typically then become less rental than maybe attached. Is that
That's been my impression. Also, I don't know if I don't have any data to support that. It's
I don't
just
either. I just wonder.
it's just a thought.
Wouldn't we have business license for that organization that was renting them out?
Yeah, I was just looking up on the county website. So.
And that's one thing I'm looking forward to later is to have like a map that shows us where all the rental properties are. That would be helpful.
Good luck. That's going to be hard. That's going to be a hard map to make. Any more questions?
No, I just.
Okay, if you're ready for a motion, I'm ready to make one.
I'm ready.
Chair Chaburka, I would make a motion concerning the petition 2019-19, amending the community plan that we uphold the Planning Commission's recommendation and deny the petition to change the zoning or to change the community plan for that community.
Second that motion.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Nadolski to deny the petition 2019-19, and this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Vice Chair Blair.
No.
Chair Chaburka.
No. Thank you. So that is, well, it upholds the denial. I don't know how else to announce that, correct?
Yeah, it just denies the petition. And I'll make a follow-up motion with this other petition. I move that on 2019-19, the rezoning request, as much as we did not approve a change in the community plan, that the zoning is no longer necessary. So I would move that we deny that also.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Nadolski to deny the petition 20-19, rezoning the property. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Vice Chair Blair.
No.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye. Thank you. That passes. Thank you. Would you like to
I
comment?
would like to comment just for a minute.
I will,
Sorry.
I will as well. Please.
Get
thank
comfortable.
you.
No.
Yeah. I'm ready.
I too don't want to discredit any community involvement, and like Councilman Heyer has said, there is a lot of passion and a lot of pride that goes on in that community, and I totally respect that, and I'm not trying to discredit that by any means. Just this myself, I just feel like I was mentioned earlier, there are fewer and fewer parcels of property to be developed and fewer parcels where we can make big impacts on our community. And I feel like this could have been one of them. I hope that the petitioners continues to work with Planning Commission and come up with maybe something that's a little more agreeable. I don't know. I felt like we focused a lot on the R3 zone, and I don't know if we fully looked into the R2. I didn't really see what the R2 differences were. I know it was a little bit more, a little less. And with this new plan, maybe that fits into there. I don't know. So there's just an idea. My other thing was, I just feel like I understand that there are people here that want to sell their property or have property there. And I just feel like everyone has property rights. And I don't want to take those property rights out of somebody. And I understand why we have community plans. And I get that. I just feel like, I don't feel like this was a negative impact or a detriment to a community. But it hindered someone making a decision on their own property. And so those are my thoughts on that.
Thank you. Well, and I'll just make a comment to my note on the denial of the community plan. Is I do also feel just a little bit like we're restricting that small sliver on the corner, and I see that corner could move a little farther into the neighborhood. Not that I want to impinge on anybody else's expectation of what the neighborhood should be like. I feel like, and I'm not an expert in planning, but I'd rather see it all be connected in some way, like the design that was shown to us, than have it be maybe totally disconnected. But I do hope maybe there's some other way that we can work it into the plan. So that was just my rationale.
Well, Chair, I'd kind of like to reply to that too.
Yeah.
I think my intention of doing what I did was not to stop any progress there. That was not the intention.
Sure, no, I wouldn't suggest it was.
I think that the legal things that are already in place that can be legally done can benefit everyone. That was my whole thinking, and so I don't think we're far apart on our ideology here. But I do think, though, that it obviously needed to start over in my mind. That's why I denied what was already there. So that's where we are.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I love that we can pleasantly agree to disagree all the time. It's wonderful. Yeah. Please.
Chair, if I could just follow up with what Councilmember Heyer said, is that I have said this all along, that I really think that we should look at a combination of both detached and townhomes and even multifamily apartment kind of units in there. And so I think there can be density. We just have to restart the look at what can really work in that R3 CO zone. R1, whatever.
You said that with such confidence.
Yeah.
No,
So I have said that all along. So that, I mean, I think it's not that I maybe not go along with some of the reasons why, and I think I've said that before. I think the denial, because of what the Planning Commission had to do, was based on a community plan. That's not why I was denying or I was supporting it. So
thank you.
That has a lot of strength with the community plan, and it doesn't mean that we can't come back with another plan for the area, but when the Planning Commission went 7-0, it was
Maybe there'll be a Blair
strong.
Sinclair plan there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I certainly don't want to suggest I'm disrespecting the Planning Commission in any way. I just know they're under very different rules than we are, our guidelines.
And that's why we have the community plans, sometimes give us direction. Not saying that they're always right, the community plan, and we need to update some of those and be more modernized with some of these, but it takes a lot of effort to go ahead and do something like that. But and Bart, you'd probably have to put your station a little bit further into the land there. But
well, thank you, and thank you all for your comments. Now it's time for public comments. If anybody has anything they'd like to address the council regarding any concerns or ideas on any topic, please step forward, state your name for the record, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Well, I was on my way to the restroom, so hopefully I can make it. My name is Bill Hart. home address, is that what you want?
Just your name is fine.
Name. I'm involved with the Anderson piece. I married Lyman's youngest daughter. When I got involved with that family, yes, it was a nice place to hang around and do things. Lyman got older and couldn't do the things he needed to do. Sold his horse and then decided to get another one. The city changed the code. No more horses. So as far as maintaining the history and the lifestyle, it's gone. And the little lady that lived on the corner in the trees, she's gone. I guess you could call her a vagabond, homeless, obviously, but the area there is in bad shape. That corner's been in bad shape a long time. And now there's a opportunity to expand that, of which we're involved. Bobby Gibney's involved, a couple other places. And I think that hopefully we can come to an agreement on it, because it does need to change. And one last thing is that those that love that area down 2nd Street, I wonder how they felt when the city bought BDO, what their thinking was to what was going to happen there. It's almost built out. It's an unbelievable income stream for the city in taxes, employment, and I think anything you people can do to enhance that. Could put some housing in that corner. Maybe they like a job in BDO or something. Who knows? But housing is an important thing, and I think that's an area that probably could benefit the people that work in there. Thank you.
Thank you. You made it.
Welcome, Tammy.
Nice to
Tammy
see you.
Krieger. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much, Councilman Heyer, Nadowski, everyone. I appreciate your consideration. I do want to reiterate that we just got historic designation on our home. So please remember that for future requests to change the zoning, because we start developing there, the more development is going to damage my historic home. We already went through that. So please keep that in mind. Please consider using RDA money to fix up and create Bingham's Fort Historic District, because you all have the power to impact that to be a true asset, not only for those of us that live there, but for the whole city and future generations. So thank you.
Thank you.
Shelley Hart, 140 West 2nd. I am Lyman Anderson's daughter, and I fought with them for years to go along with the historic. I've got to tell you, I'm not in this for the money. And I almost kind of resent the fact that the comment has been made that there's money to be made. Yeah, there is. But I'm selling that house because I can't afford to keep it up any longer. It's falling down. There's not water access. There's not sewer access. I love that historic area, and no one can say I haven't upheld it all along. But there comes a point in time, I'm retired, I can't take care of that acre and a half. I have let people live there for free to keep it going, to keep it viable. And I will be landlocked when this development goes in. I will be nowhere to go. And when my niece moves out, there's no one to move in. And if you think that you're going to walk away from a developer because of the historic area, please think twice. It is every bit as important to me to keep that area viable and beautiful. But my home is not going to make the difference. I can't afford it. And I admire, as you called her, Mayor Anna. I admire that woman for the work she's put in and the trouble she's gone to, the blood, sweat, and tears. But there comes a point in time where we have to come to a compromise and let those of us that can't afford it and who can't live there anymore. I have a home and I have a family, and to move back down to 2nd Street isn't in my plan. I've loved that home since my parents bought it. I was going to say 1938, but I wasn't here in 1938. But there has to come a compromise. And yes, I admire you representing the people, but I'm a landowner down there. And I love the home and I love the neighborhood, and I dearly love Anna Keogh. She's a good woman and has put forth a lot of effort. But I think everything has to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Christy Eversole. I have a question on a completely different topic.
Thank
Okay.
I would like to know what is happening with the Art Deco building directly next to the Blair service station. It's been closed up for a couple of years now. It's been deteriorating progressively. I've noticed it's starting to get tagged with graffiti. Originally, I was told that Ogden City had great plans for it 2 years ago, and they were secretive, and they were working with an architect on it, and then nothing's happened. And as a lover of architecture and historical buildings, I'd like to know if there are any plans, if there's any knowledge.
Great. And are you done? Because we'll ask the question, but we don't
Please,
want to take up your
I'm
time.
done.
Okay.
That's all I need.
Sorry. I didn't mean to say, are you done? Thank you. Sorry.
You're good.
Would you like to make any comment on that, administration?
Sure. We did keep that building because we share the same love for Art Deco, and that was a really unique spot. The outer buildings were torn down, and we are having conversations right now with developers and looking at options to go in and remodel that building, keep that viable, and then to do some infill housing around that. So we're working to find a developer right now, and we'll continue to do it until we get that. If you see tagging or anything else going on there, please give us a call because we'll go in and take care of that immediately. But the plan is to renovate that building and do some infill around that, and that's all. That plan hasn't changed. We just haven't found the right developer yet for that.
So would Ogden City be the developer, or are you looking for an outside developer to come in and bid that?
We would like an outside developer to come in. We're not professional developers, so we try to get out of that as much as with some properties, some of the single homes around the old D Elementary site and Ogden, but that's not the ideal position for the city to be in. We would much rather a developer come in, a private developer, to do that.
But the reason you guys have done it previously is because you haven't been able to get developers to come into Ogden City to do that infill housing.
In certain circumstances, that's correct.
And what we can do is have the administration follow up with you after the meeting if you'd like to continue the conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Wait, any other public comment?
Good evening, Angel Castillo. Well, that was fun. I've been talking to you for almost 2 years about police salaries and affordable housing. Those are my big two things. And for the council members that weren't here last session when we talked about this, we are again revisiting something that we're continually coming up against and butting our heads with as a planning commission and as city council, with the fact that we have a general plan that is hobbling us. I mean, I myself live in a home that's almost 100 years old. I'm a big fan of historic homes, and I have a really special place in my heart for all of the old buildings that are here in Ogden, because I believe it makes it really enhances our culture, both our commercial buildings as well as our residential buildings. But I couldn't agree more with Councilmember White. We have to figure out the appropriate soft density within residential neighborhoods, as well as the higher density buildings that would be along transit lines. And the only way we're going to do that is to dig deep and find the money to be able to fix our plan. And for those of you who weren't here last week, we can fix this with about $500,000 to hire an outside consultant to update the general plan, which would take about 1.5 years to do. Or we could hire 3 planners, and that will take 2.5 years to do so. I say be proactive as opposed to reactive and do both. Hire the consultants, hire 3 more planners and let's dig ourselves out of this situation because we're being limited on our commercial side for developers. Developers are constantly butting up against an old plan that isn't allowing, and we have to treat each section of our community as special. Density, it's not blanket density for everyone and everything. It's what makes sense for each individual neighborhood, which is why it's something that's going to take a year or 2 years to get down to. But if we don't fix this, we are going to be up against some really tight situations that are going to hobble us with developers coming in and building housing. And part of our affordable housing problem is not just ADUs and duplexes and tiny homes. And it has everything to do with changing our code so that we are going to allow smaller lots, smaller setbacks. And you can't do that until you update the entire code. And the county is already on that page. They have been going around and around and around about trying to get people on board with smaller lot sizes, because that's the only way that we're going to handle 5 million by 2050. It'll be here sooner than you know it. And I want to retain our character and be able to allow growth while still making sure we're taking care of our residents with the feel of their neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I don't see any more movement. Great. Would you like to make any comments, Mayor?
Sure. I'll just say I appreciate the thoughtful consideration that's gone into this. It's obviously a very emotional issue for a lot of people, and you guys have spent a lot of time working on it, and I appreciate and respect that. And also say it was fun to celebrate Women's History Month. As I'm looking down the row, I'm looking at Councilmember White, Councilmember Nadolski, Councilmember Blair, and myself that have houses full of women and no counterbalance to that, so we can go home and say we celebrated Women's History Month.
I've only got a house full of women.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I know those 3 and myself for sure are all in the same boat, but I just think it's really cool that we were able to do that.
You only got a woman in your house too, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's most of us.
All right.
Hit them all.
Yeah, I thought that was fun to celebrate, so thank you very much.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, is it a comment about your events or?
Yes.
Okay. I guess we'll make an exception in this case. You are a special guest.
So sorry. I just wanted to invite you on the 13th of this month at the Eccles Art Center at 7 p.m. We're doing a presentation about Ogden women.
Oh.
So if you're available, come by and we'll be
happy
to have you. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
It's okay. We can take it. Any comments from council members?
This was kind of an emotional thing, and I knew everybody wasn't going to be happy, and I hope it doesn't stop the progress that we're making. Hope we can find ways to utilize this. I mean, I drive by this at least twice a week. I drive down 2nd Street, and it does need some love and it does need some help. I hope we can get, if it's not this developer, another one in that will care for it in a careful way and build something that's an asset that will add to the fabric of the community and not detract. And that's my desire. That's what I hope happens. So, and bless you. So.
On the record.
If we all say bless you, will you make it in the minutes?
Yeah, see if it works. Yeah.
Sorry,
Any
can I
other
make
comments,
a quick
please?
comment? I just wanted to say, in fairness to Councilmember Heyer, he's not the one that mentioned people's motives to make money. I was. But my comment was not to besmirch anybody's motives. It's a simple fact that profit drives these proposals. I'm not disparaging that at all. And I followed up with a comment that I'm not against developers making money, because it is how this works. I just think we've seen proposals that are trying to maximize that. And that's kind of the nature of this, for better or for worse. And it hasn't seemed to hit the mark for the area.
Well, we find ourselves as the arbiters of that.
Yeah.
And that's our role.
Yeah.
Is the arbiters.
Are there any other comments from other council members? No? Good.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Motion to adjourn, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.